There is a story about a Japanese master craftsman who spent 40 years making swords, not because he needed the money, not because it was all he knew how to do, but because he understood something that most people never learn: that the quality of what you create is inseparable from the quality of who you are when you create it. One day, a young student came to him and asked, "What is the most important part of making a great sword?" The master did not answer immediately. He picked up a raw piece of iron, rough, shapeless, full of impurities, and held it in front of the student. He said, "The work is not adding anything to this. The work is removing everything that does not belong. That is what this video is about. Not adding confidence, not performing it, not borrowing it from someone else's energy or someone else's words. This is about removing everything that was placed inside you that was never yours to carry. The fears that were planted before you had the language to question them. The doubts that were handed to you by people who were themselves afraid. The performance you learned to wear because the world seemed to reward the show and punish the silence. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 lessons. 7 specific, practical, deeply honest things that will help you become dangerously confident. Not the loud, brittle kind of confidence that collapses under pressure. The quiet, unshakable kind. The kind that does not need an audience. The kind that holds when life gets hard, when people push back, when the room is not applauding. By the time this video is over, you will understand exactly what has been draining your confidence without you realizing it, and exactly what to do instead, but only if you stay with me through all 7. What remains when all of that is removed is what we are here to find. If this channel is new to you, subscribe to the Stoic Truth right now. Every week we do this work together, the deep kind, the kind that actually changes something. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Now, let us begin. 1. Stop performing certainty. You do not feel. In 1953, a physicist named Richard Feynman was asked to sit on a panel reviewing science textbooks for American schools. He was one of the greatest scientific minds of the 20th century. And what he found in those textbooks disturbed him more than anything he had encountered in his academic life. Every book was written as though science was a collection of settled answers. As though the entire purpose of education was to hand young people conclusions and ask them to memorize them. There was no uncertainty, no process, no honest admission that most of what we know is incomplete, that most of what we believe is our best current guess, not eternal truth. Feynman said something that I want you to carry with you after this video is over. He said the first principle is that you must not fool yourself. And you are the easiest person to fool. Think about what that means in the context of your own life. How much of what you project every single day is a performance designed to protect you from being seen as uncertain? How much energy do you spend maintaining the appearance of having it figured out? In your career, in your relationships, in the decisions you make. When underneath that performance, there is a person who is still working it out, still questioning, still quietly unsure. Here is what most people do not know. The performance costs more than the truth ever would. When you perform certainty you do not feel, you split yourself in 2. There is the version of you that speaks, confident, clear, decisive. And then there is the version underneath watching that performance and quietly panicking. One version facing the world, one version screaming behind the mask, and maintaining that split is exhausting in a way that is difficult to explain until you finally stop doing it and feel the relief. The philosopher Baruch Spinoza wrote, "The more clearly you understand yourself and your emotions, the more you become a lover of what is." What he meant was that honesty about your own inner state is not weakness, it is the beginning of real power. Because you cannot work with what you will not look at. You cannot strengthen what you refuse to acknowledge. Here is what genuinely confident people do that most people mistake for weakness. They say, "I do not know," without their voice dropping. They say, "I was wrong about that," without their identity collapsing. They say, "I am still working through this," without needing anyone to rescue them from the uncertainty. And the people in the room do not lose respect for them. They lean in. Because honesty in a world full of performance is magnetic. It is rare. And people can feel the difference between someone who is standing in their truth and someone who is desperately trying not to be seen. Ask yourself honestly, how many conversations this week did you walk into performing certainty you did not feel? How many times did you defend a position not because you believed it, but because changing your mind felt like defeat? How many relationships are you maintaining on the fuel of a version of yourself that is not entirely real? The practice is not complicated. The next time you do not know something, say so. Fully, without apology, without immediately redirecting to what you do know. Just sit in the honesty of it and let the world respond. You will be surprised. The world responds to honesty far better than your fear has led you to believe. Drop a comment right now. Tell me, what is one area of your life where you have been performing certainty you do not actually feel? Write it below. You do not have to explain it. Just name it, because naming it is the first step to releasing it. 2. Your boundaries are not walls. They are the architecture of self-respect. In the early 1900s, a man named Nikola Tesla lived in a New York hotel room with almost nothing to his name. He had once been celebrated, fought over by the most powerful industrialists in the world. But year after year, he had said yes to the wrong people. He had let others define the terms of his work, his worth, his time. He had no real boundaries because he believed that greatness meant total availability, total service, total sacrifice of self. And by the end of his life, alone and largely forgotten, he had given everything and kept nothing. I am not telling you this to make you feel sorry for Tesla. I am telling you this because his story lives in millions of people right now. Maybe in you. The habit of saying yes when you mean no. The habit of absorbing other people's moods, other people's crises, other people's urgency, as though they were your own responsibility. The habit of making yourself smaller, quieter, more convenient. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that your comfort mattered less than other people's approval of you. And every time you do it, every time you override your own limits to keep someone else comfortable, your nervous system registers one quiet, devastating message. You are not safe even from yourself. The therapist and author Harriet Lerner wrote something that I think is one of the most important sentences in the literature of human psychology. She wrote, "The more clearly we can define who we are, what we value, and what we will not do, the more solid our sense of self becomes. The clearer the boundary, the stronger the person inside it. A boundary is not a wall. A wall keeps everything out. A boundary simply defines where you end and someone else begins. It does not mean you do not care. It means you care about yourself enough not to disappear in the service of someone else's comfort. Here is what boundary mastery actually looks like in real life. It looks like saying that does not work for me, and then stopping. No elaboration, no apology trailing behind like a shadow, no 3-paragraph explanation of why you are not available. Just the clean, honest statement of your limit. Said calmly, said once. The discomfort you feel when you start doing this is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are breaking a pattern that was installed before you had the ability to question it. Most people were taught, not through words but through experience, that having needs was selfish, that saying no was unkind, that love meant limitless availability. Those teachings were not the truth. They were someone else's fear passing itself off as virtue. Here is how you know your boundaries are real and not just performed. Real boundaries do not require anger to enforce. They do not require lengthy justification. They are simply the natural expression of what you will and will not accept, stated calmly, held consistently. And the people who genuinely respect you will meet them without drama. The people who push back, guilt you, or call you selfish, that reaction is not information about your character. It is information about theirs. Your peace is not a luxury. It is not something you earn after everyone else's needs are met. It is the foundation from which everything else in your life is built. Protect it like your life depends on it. Because in a very real sense, it does. If this lesson hit home for you, like this video right now and share it with someone who has been giving too much of themselves to the wrong people. They need to hear this more than you know. 3. The most powerful thing in any room is a man who cannot be moved. Let me tell you about a moment in the life of the Roman Emperor Hadrian. A man known not just for his military command, but for his unusual quality of stillness. There is a story, possibly legend, possibly history, that a general once stormed into Hadrian's chamber in a rage, screaming accusations, threatening his position, his reputation, his legacy. Everyone in the room froze. They waited for the emperor to respond in kind, to match the fury, to defend himself with the full force of imperial authority. Hadrian said nothing. He sat. He waited. He let the silence do the work. And when the general had exhausted himself, when all the noise had spent itself against that wall of calm, Hadrian looked at him quietly and said, "Are you finished?" 2 words. And the entire room understood who held the power. Most people are reactive. Someone criticizes them and they defend. Someone challenges them and they fight. Someone withdraws and they chase. Someone raises their voice and they raise theirs higher. Their emotional state is entirely dependent on what is happening around them. They are not living from the inside out. They are living from the outside in. And that is a deeply uncomfortable way to move through the world, because it means your peace is always one difficult interaction away from collapse. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus, who taught Epictetus and whose words are far less quoted than they deserve to be, wrote, "It is not possible to live well today unless one treats it as one's last day." What he was pointing at was presence, the radical act of being so fully rooted in this moment that the noise around you loses its power to pull you from your center. Emotional non-reactivity is not suppression. Suppression is pushing the feeling down and pretending it is not there, which is its own kind of violence against yourself. Non-reactivity is something entirely different. It is the capacity to feel what you feel, to fully witness the provocation, the criticism, the chaos, and to choose your response rather than be chosen by it. Think about the people in your life who genuinely unsettle you. Chances are they are highly reactive. You never know what version of them you are getting. Their energy shifts with their mood, with how their morning went, with who said what on social media. There is no solid ground in them. Now think about the people who ground you, the ones whose presence makes you feel calm. What they share is internal consistency. They are the same person in difficulty as they are in ease. You trust them because their stability comes from inside, not from how the day is treating them. You can become that person, not by becoming cold, not by pretending things do not affect you, but by lengthening the space between what happens to you and how you respond. Viktor Frankl, who survived 4 Nazi concentration camps and came out the other side teaching the world about meaning and freedom, said that space, that pause between stimulus and response, is where all human freedom lives, and you can train that space to grow wider. The practice is this: the next time something provokes you, do not respond immediately, not because you have nothing to say, but because you want your response to come from your center rather than from the wound. Wait, breathe. Let the wave of the reaction pass through you, then respond from the stillness on the other side of it. Do this enough times and something shifts permanently. You become, in the deepest sense, difficult to move. And that quality, that groundedness, that calm that does not depend on conditions being favorable, is one of the most powerful things a human being can embody. Think about the last time someone provoked you and you reacted in a way you later regretted. Now think about how differently that situation would have gone if you had said nothing and waited. Tell me about it in the comments. And if you are watching this and you know someone who needs to develop this kind of stillness, share this video with them right now. 4. The moment you stop chasing. Approval is the moment you become free. In 1879, a Norwegian playwright named Henrik Ibsen wrote a play that caused a scandal across Europe. It was called A Doll's House, and at the center of it was a woman named Nora, who had spent her entire life performing the version of herself that her husband, her father, and her society expected. She was cheerful when she was not cheerful. She was agreeable when she was not in agreement. She made herself small and pleasant and convenient because that was the only self the world around her had made room for. And then, one day, after years of that performance, she walked out the door, not with anger, not with a dramatic declaration, just with the quiet, devastating certainty of a person who had finally decided that living as herself was worth more than being approved of. That door slamming at the end of Ibsen's play became one of the most famous sounds in the history of theater, because everyone who heard it recognized something, the sound of a person choosing themselves. Most people are waiting for that moment without knowing they are waiting. They are spending enormous amounts of energy, their attention, their focus, their presence, monitoring how they are being perceived, checking if the message was well received, wondering what that silence means, rehearsing the next interaction in their heads, comparing their reality to someone else's highlight reel. And in doing all of that, they are absent from their own lives. The psychologist William James, not the most quoted philosopher, but one of the most insightful minds in the history of human thought, wrote that the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. He was right. That craving is real. It is ancient. It is wired into us. But there is a difference between the warmth of genuine connection and the desperate hunger of validation seeking. One nourishes, the other hollows. Real confidence is internal validation, the ability to know without external confirmation that what you are doing matters, that the choice you made was right for you, that your presence in a room has value whether or not anyone comments on it, that the work you are building in private is worth building regardless of who applauds. The shift begins with a simple question. One question you start asking instead of what will they think. That question is, what do I actually want here? Not what is expected, not what will be best received, not what will keep the peace. What do you actually want? And then the courage to let that answer mean something. This is not selfishness. Selfishness is indifference to the impact you have on others. This is self-authorship, the decision to be the person living your life rather than the person performing it for an audience that is mostly imaginary. When you stop needing the crowd's approval, something returns to you that approval-seeking had been stealing. Your presence returns. Your clarity returns. The ability to walk into a room and simply be there, not performing, not monitoring, not managing perceptions. That returns, and people feel the difference. Not because you became louder or more impressive, but because you became real. Be honest with me in the comments. What decision have you been holding back on because you were waiting for someone else's approval? Write it below. And if this lesson is speaking to something you have been feeling for a long time, subscribe to the Stoic Truth right now. This is the kind of conversation we have every single week. 5. Confidence is not built in dramatic moments. It is built in the ones nobody sees. In 1936, Jesse Owens walked into the Olympic Stadium in Berlin and won 4 gold medals in front of a crowd that included Adolf Hitler, who believed with violent conviction that Owens and every person who looked like him was inferior. Every step Owens took that day was an act of world-altering confidence. Every finish line he crossed was a sentence written in history that could never be erased. But here is the part of the story that most people never tell. Jesse Owens did not become Jesse Owens on that day in Berlin. He became Jesse Owens in the years before, in the Ohio State training grounds at 5 in the morning, in the cold, in the quiet, in the absence of any audience at all. He became Jesse Owens in the moments nobody watched, in the workouts nobody applauded, in the commitments he kept to himself when the only witness was him. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer wrote, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." What he meant was that the highest form of human achievement is not the performance in front of the crowd. It is the private standard you hold yourself to when no one is checking. Most people are waiting for the big moment, the promotion, the opportunity, the breakthrough, the relationship that finally confirms their worth. They believe that confidence will arrive when circumstances change, but confidence does not work that way. Confidence is not a destination. It is the accumulated weight of thousands of small decisions, most of them invisible, most of them unremarkable, most of them made in private with no reward other than the quiet knowledge that you kept your word to yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, trust is built. Not trust from other people. Trust between your present self and the future self you are trying to become. And every time you break that private commitment, every time you say you will, and then you do not, that trust erodes. Not dramatically, not in a way anyone else can see, but you feel it. Your nervous system records every betrayal and every act of integrity. And over time, the record speaks louder than any affirmation. Here is the practice. Start smaller than feels meaningful. Commit to 10 minutes of something that matters instead of an hour you will not sustain. Keep that commitment. Then keep it again. Then again. Do not track whether you are doing it well. Track only whether you are doing it. And when you do not spiral into shame. Simply ask, what is the smallest version of this I can do right now? And then do it. This is how confidence is forged. Not in dramatic gestures, but in the daily, unglamorous, unsexy accumulation of integrity. And when the big moment eventually arrives, when the room expects something from you, when the stakes are high and the eyes are watching, you will not question whether you have what it takes. You will know you do, because you built it in private, stone by stone, in the moments nobody saw. I want to hear from you. What is one private commitment you are going to make to yourself today, right now, after watching this lesson? Write it in the comments and let this community hold you to it. Accountability starts here. 6. Your reality does not require anyone's permission to exist. In 1888, the painter Vincent van Gogh wrote a letter to his brother Theo from a small room in the south of France. He had sold almost nothing. He was largely ignored by the art world of his time. He was considered eccentric, difficult, unstable. And yet in that letter he wrote something that stops me every time I read it. He said, "I dream my painting, and then I paint my dream. Not, I paint what they want to see. Not, I paint what will be accepted. Not, I paint what has been approved." He painted what was true inside him, with no guarantee that the world would ever understand it, with no certainty that anyone would ever see what he saw. We now know those paintings as some of the most valuable and beloved art ever created. But Van Gogh did not know that. He just knew what was true for him. Most people spend an enormous amount of energy defending their reality. When someone questions their choice, they immediately build a case. When someone challenges their experience, they gather evidence. When someone disagrees with their perspective, they argue until they win or exhaust themselves trying. And underneath all of that defending is a belief that their reality only exists if someone else agrees with it. But your experience does not need consensus to be real. Your perception of what happened to you is valid, whether or not the person involved acknowledges it. Your decision does not require universal approval before it can be the right one for you. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein spent his entire career examining how language shapes reality, how the words we use to describe our experience create the limits of what we can think and feel. And one of the most important things his work pointed toward was this: when you are constantly defending your reality, you are treating it as though it is fragile, as though it will collapse under the weight of someone else's doubt. It will not, unless you let it. The practice is this: state your truth once, clearly, calmly, without apology, and without the 10 sentences of justification you have learned to attach to it like armor. If someone disagrees, acknowledge that they see it differently. You do not have to absorb their disagreement as evidence that you are wrong. You do not have to change your position simply because it is being challenged. You can hold your truth lightly but firmly, open to genuine new information, but not at the mercy of other people's discomfort with who you are. This is not arrogance. Arrogance needs to prove itself right. This is something quieter and more powerful. This is the confidence of a person who has stopped asking the world for permission to exist as they actually are. Has someone ever made you feel like your experience was not valid, like you had to earn the right to feel what you felt? Tell me in the comments. You are not alone in that. And if this channel is speaking to something real in you, share this video right now. Someone in your circle is carrying this exact weight and does not have the words for it yet. Your share might be the thing that changes their week. 7. The most dangerous thing you can do is learn to disappear on purpose. There is a story about the Japanese master of strategy Miyamoto Musashi, who is widely considered the greatest swordsman in history. He won over 60 duels without losing once. And historians and scholars who have studied his life have noted something unusual about how he moved through the world between those duels. He was largely invisible. He did not seek attention. He did not announce himself. He disappeared into monasteries, into forests, into periods of deep, silent work that no one witnessed. And when he emerged, there was something in him that other men could feel before he spoke a word. The modern world has sold you a very specific lie. That confidence means always being seen, always taking space, always making your presence known. That if you are not broadcasting, you do not exist. That if you are not accumulating attention, you are losing ground. But strategic invisibility is one of the most underestimated qualities a person can develop. The ability to choose when to be seen and when to observe. The ability to work in private without the need for an audience confirming that the work matters. The ability to sit in a room without performing, to let others speak without inserting yourself, to be completely present and completely quiet at the same time. The psychologist Carl Rogers wrote about what he called presence, a quality of full attentiveness that requires the temporary suspension of your own agenda. When you are always trying to be seen, presence becomes impossible. You are too busy managing your image to actually be in the room. But when you release the need to be noticed, something opens. You begin to actually hear what is being said. You begin to read the room accurately. You begin to respond to what is real rather than to what serves your performance. Real confidence does not need a stage. It exists in the quiet moments, just as fully as in the visible ones. The person who does work no one will ever see. The commitment kept in private. The standard held when the only witness is yourself. These are not small things. They are the architecture of someone who does not need the world's attention to know their own worth. Practice disappearing on purpose. Do work without announcing it. Build something without sharing it. Attend a gathering and listen more than you speak. Take a week away from performing your life online and just live it. And notice what happens to your sense of self when external validation is removed. What remains when no one is watching? That remainder, that quiet, solid, unperformed version of you, that is the most dangerous thing you can become. Which of these 7 lessons hit you the hardest? Comment the number below, 1 through 7, and tell me why. Reading every single one of those comments. And if you made it to the end of this video, you are already different from the person who pressed play. Do not let that go to waste. Here is what all 7 of these lessons come down to. You are not here to add anything to yourself. You are here to remove what was never yours. the performance, the chronic self-monitoring, the desperate hunger for approval, the reflexive defense of your existence, the emotional reactivity that lets the world run your inner life from the outside, the hollow certainty that costs you more than honest uncertainty ever would. Remove those things, and what is left is not new. It is ancient. It is the version of you that existed before the world taught you to be small, before you learned to edit yourself, before you even spoke, before you decided that survival required shrinking. The sculptor Michelangelo reportedly said, "The sculpture is already complete inside the marble. I only need to remove the stone that does not belong. That is the work." That is what every lesson in this video has been pointing toward. The confident, grounded, unshakable version of you is not something you need to build from nothing. It is something you need to uncover from everything that has been piled on top of it. This is not fast work. These patterns were not installed overnight, and they will not be removed overnight. But awareness is the beginning of everything. Every time you catch yourself performing certainty you do not feel, that is a chisel. Every time you hold a boundary without apologizing for it, that is a chisel. Every time you stay calm when provocation wants your reaction, that is a chisel. Every time you keep a private promise to yourself, that is a chisel. Every time you let your truth stand without defending it, that is a chisel. Every time you disappear on purpose and find that you are still whole, that is a chisel. Layer by layer, choice by choice, in the small, quiet moments that no one will ever applaud, you are uncovering something that was always there. If this video served you, then serve it forward. Like it right now. Share it with someone who has been quietly eroding, someone whose confidence has been leaking for years without them having the language to explain why. Subscribe to the Stoic Truth because this is only the beginning of this conversation. Every week, we go deeper into the work of building a life that holds up under real pressure. And if you feel something shifting after watching this, if something here has named a weight you have been carrying without knowing what to call it, then the only thing left to do is begin. Not perfectly, not all at once, just one small, honest, deliberate step in the direction of the person you actually are. That step is yours. Take it.